you have done a lot of research on the role of colleges of education in this as well. And so how do we do this? Given your research on teacher education
Yeah.
and colleges of education, what responsibility do we have to help put some of these initiatives through, based on your research?
Well, I think that the whole business of teacher education is so under-provided for. Mm-hmm. What has happened is that every year schooling gets further away from children and teachers and gets people running things who are not the agencies we ought to have for schooling. Mm-hmm. Okay, Taylor and what the Ford Foundation did in ruining the workplace by now having, what you got. And now, after you had taken away the opportunity for automobile workers, you take away the opportunity for them to have the joy of seeing 5 or 6 of them, and this car going out, and this car going out, and this car going out. What did Ford do? You do that, you do that, you do that, you do that. What motivation have you got left? You say the word, money. Mm-hmm. That's the point at which money became the big drive in this country, money. So as I come back here, what I'm trying to do now is to do something very much like what a professor at Simon Fraser University did in Vancouver. They were probably quite prominent there because I almost went back to Canada in order to be dean of that place, and it wasn't quite right at the time, but it became very rapidly one of the best universities in Canada, very quickly. And he got an idea, and I forget the full name of it, but anyway, the idea is that you have a coming together. Bill, the person I talked to, a superintendent for the place next door, said to his principals, I want you to have a coffee or something and bring the parents together. This is answering your question of what might we do. Mm-hmm. And then when they did it, you ought to see how when I came up with my introduction to the occasional paper, and then another occasional paper where I'm talking about this, people are just, yes, but they have to say, but where do we get the time where we're coming out? Now, what we did was to bring a very varied group of people together one evening, and all of them had an opportunity to read these papers beforehand, and they came on and just said, yeah, that's what we ought to be doing. Okay, what is it? What this man did, and it went right across Canada and quite a bit down this shore, and it was, you have a cafe. He had a bigger name for it because he said, just as many other people are saying, he said, people are getting dumber and dumber and dumber. We ought to get education going to parents who aren't getting this anymore. All it is the money and so on. So what he did was to say, in your community, go to a nice little restaurant of some sort there and announce that on such and such an evening at 7 o'clock, so-and-so, who wrote this book, is going to be there. Mm. And that person will speak to you for 15 or 20 minutes, and then you all get into conversation. Hmm. Well, what Bill did here was, to his principals, get these parents together and over a coffee or whatnot, and let's start talking about what we want in our schools. Hmm. He is, that as a result of all of that, one of my colleagues, who is director of the Goodlad Institute for Educational Renewal, which is now with the University of Washington, but with the other campus up there, the northern one. And these school districts are begging now to get trained in this kind of administration. And my friend Tom Bellamy, I don't think he was one of the people I named, and I should have if I didn't. Tom Bellamy is a very, very bright man, about as different from me as a person could be, because every time he tries to do something, he comes with the piece. Then he'll add another piece, and then he'll add another piece. I don't work that way. I start with the whole and then try to find the pieces. But oh, do we get along well. We have the most wonderful conversations. Okay, he now is beginning, he's going preparing principals there. Now we've got two big districts saying, can we get in? Okay, now then, coming back to our man at Simon Fraser, what happened here is that you get in this place, they will have an author, they'll have an artist, they'll have so-and-so. What I'm talking about, no. You're going to do it, but what you're going to do is something about the things that we overlooked in the last 50 years, what these people were saying. These were parents and teachers saying, we've forgotten something. And so now we got to create it. And so we've got to get the teachers and the parents coming together. And so we right now are reconstructing the National Network for Educational Renewal. And that was put together with Roger and Ken Sirotnik, now deceased, one of my greatest friends. What a loss he was. He and we used to fight all the time. But it's the people who argue with me that I enjoy. And Ken, we lost him. It was just too bad. He and Roger and I put together the National Network for Educational Renewal, and what did it say? There are three groups of people who prepare teachers. There's arts and science people. Do they talk to the education people? No. There's the school people who we send our student teachers to. What do they get? Oh, we'll have a tea. We did a big research study, Ken and Roger and I, in which we discovered that those three groups weren't talking to one another at all. What kind of sense does this make? So when we got that here at the University of Washington, which we got that great big grant from Carnegie, out of which came nothing, what the problem was how the heck do you get the university in particular to get out there, because a lot of the people in the university don't want to get involved with the school anymore. Well, lo and behold, what we discovered out of this thing here was the arts and sciences were really zooming. We had great, I can't say the same thing for the School of Education. They tried, but we never did get around to these three groups having to come together. Now we're going, we've Ken and Roger and I put together the idea that if you want to be a member of the national network, you have to have the arts and sciences talking to the School of Education, talking to schools. And those schools, I come all the way back to where Harvard was at that point with team teaching, and that is you come back where we have schools that are doing this. And we're not going to get schools doing this if we continue to have Duncan and his staff doing what they're doing. So that's what you and I have to do.
Does this relate to, tell us about the time that you testified before Senator Kennedy's Education Committee. What was that about? And when you testified before Senator Kennedy's Education Committee, what was that about?
It was an accident in a way, and I don't know why. Again, I was simply, I don't know why I was in Washington, what the occasion was, but during it, some of us were asked to meet with that committee. Senate was a Senate committee.
Yes.
We got as ridiculous things in that conversation that when a key person who was the head education person in here, where the headquarters were with what Jim Conant created in Colorado. That's where it settled down, where we'd have a national thing there. The person who was involved in that and was what I'm calling the superintendent, but no, it was for the whole state. He was the one who was really being getting the questions from the committee, the Senate committee. And he was saying to them about talking about actually what was happening with the quality of schooling that was underway, and what happened was he was quoting about how well some of the people really were doing, and we were not getting the right information. And he said, I expect every child to be ahead of every child abroad. That was somebody in the committee. The young lady who was involved in this for Kennedy came over to me and said, the senator wants to talk to you. So I went into his office, and he said, look what we have to deal with. Because the expectations these people were talking about, he was disgusted. That was the end of it. And he was very upset with what the Senate committee was talking about and what they were grilling the person that I'm blocking on his name. I don't think I think everything's gone pretty steady downhill since then.
Gene Edgar believes that your work on the agenda for education in a democracy.
Gene Edgar?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you talked to...
I did.
Wonderful. What is it he's asking?
He believes that your work on the agenda for education in a democracy is your most significant contribution to date. Describe that idea. What's your agenda for education in a democracy?
Oh, boy. That really grows out of getting the training together, the education of getting university people, School of Education people, and schools coming together. And we created a leadership program. And I was fortunate in getting a substantial grant of money. Happened to be from tobacco people. I don't give a toot about that. When people say, John, for goodness sake, what are you doing? I say, those people don't bother me one bit. They don't ask anything of me whatsoever. They just give me money. If they want to give money for good things, we do it. So I had a substantial grant. We were able to do a leadership program of not more than 20 people. And we were, because we anticipated 20 settings in the United States. And we would provide the people with the competence to be able to deal with that. So we had now put together, there's a great big story behind all this, because we actually went to half of the state director of education in order to do this, and we actually visited those places and told them what we were about. And as a result, we had those places wanting what we were talking about very much. The trouble was we had an enormous amount of them who wanted to get into this. As a result, we said, we can't do it. You've got to prepare yourselves before we can deal with it. And we told them what they had to do. We'll give you 2 months or 3 months, and then we will select from you. And we're sorry that we have to do this, but we just don't have the resources. The result of this was we put together these groups that came, but now we were faced with a situation that everything was new and they didn't know how to do what we were asking them to do. So we did. I wrote every one of these settings that was there, copied them to the president of the institution about what we were doing, and then told the dean we wanted to get 3 people from your institution. Somebody from a school, somebody from an arts and science person, somebody from teacher education, but we also say we want to get a certain percentage of these who were minority, at about like the school system. The result of that, then we sent out what the program would be, and the program would be that this group selected within the university would send these 3 people here for 4.5 days in October or November, I've forgotten which. In March, in the winter, in the spring, and in the summer. And they would have 4.5 days, 4 times during the week, during the year, the entire year. You talk to those people now, and they still are writing on it because they came in. We brought in outstanding people to work with them. Those folks, so you run into those, and they will say it was one of the richest times of my life. A lot of it was that my grant permitted me to buy a house up here, a couple of months away, and have a place that wasn't a hotel. These people are sick of going to conferences in hotels, and they came in here as a group together. They loved the fact that they had never seen a float plane coming across the water and seeing these all the time. We broke them twice during the day so they could go and get a 20-minute walk and so on. And as a result, we were able for very, very much to bring these people together, and we did. And then, wham, the money problem. And so we were killed simply by what occurred. Now, with the economy getting a little better, we're going to try to do it again. And this time, I'm not seeking, at this point, I'm not seeking the money from foundations, because the foundations aren't, this isn't where they are. My seeking money was always, what did I call it? Progressive money. That is, I wasn't asking for all the money for the project. I was saying, if it's good enough, you'll be willing to pay for it after. They were. And so, lo and behold, I got people like the Ford Foundation calling other foundations and saying, this is a good thing. Will you help us? 12 foundations gave us money over that time. When I tried to get some money from Ford today, I get zilch. So I'm not asking for money. What I'm doing is I'm writing these papers. We are going to send them out there in the internet. It's not going to cost anybody anything. And Jean is at the heart of it. And I mean, he was one of the people that brought together. I finally decided along the way, there's no point in getting angry. I'm going to bring together Gene and some other people who I think are wonderful. We'll put this thing together, and I've told you a little bit of what it is. Now, I've got the introduction, number 1, number 2, and I'm half written with number 3. Along comes this. So I'm just not finding the time to be able to do number 3. I'll get it somewhere, but it's going to take a while. And I'm hoping that this special program I'm going into will give me more leverage in my leg, so that I can be involved more. As things now are, things come here. We have our meetings, but I had, without seeking the money, I sold the house, and also by then I'd gotten another house, and one of those, and it's still there over there, a much smaller thing, and there I have Lena, who is right close by, because when I hired her, she wanted to get close if she possibly could, and so there it is. But and now I have these other wonderful people, and if these people can keep me afloat and then get me a little bit more than float, maybe I can provide a little bit of leadership to this, but I'm not counting on it because I've got such good people who said about this thing I'm going to do, about this special program. I talked to Gene a few days ago, and I said, Gene, I'm trying to make a decision. Do I do this now, or do I wait till the fall when we can get this up? He said, John, you got to deal with your health first, and we'll take care of the rest. So we'll see.